All right, shalom, shalom to the nation of Israel, shalom. All right, this is your brother Kazaki out of Great Millstone, New Orleans, coming at you with another lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shah, right? But prior to getting started, we want to give all infinite honor and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone, who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the whole full elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, all right? And the title of today's lesson is going to be, There is Always a Lesson to be Learned, all right? That's the title of today's lesson, is There's Always a Lesson to be learned, all right? And, this is, lesson is going to be, predicated off of, just being the best possible person you could be, being the best you that you could be, within this truth, being, having a mindset of being versatile, where you could be used in multiple things and in multiple areas. Now, every brother has their own, a lot, so to speak. They have their own portion of faith. They have their own portion of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in which the Lord gives to them, but, hey, don't, be afraid to expand yourself, if you can, if that's your lot or whatnot, and just be better, like I said, just, be the best version of the best possible version of yourself you could be, because, hey, you may start off, as a guy that maybe knows, very little, but if you pray on it, the Lord can increase you, and, not to be, over righteous or, overdoing it, so to speak. Let me get this first really quickly. I think I was there earlier. This is Sirach 3:19. It says, many are in a high place and of renown, but mysteries are revealed unto the meek. And it says, for the power of the Lord is great, and he is honored of the lowly. It says, seek not out things that are too hard for thee, right? So don't seek out things that are just, way above your limits, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to know a little more, but as you sit down, you eat, you're satisfying or satiate, as the brothers say, your appetite, don't just don't overindulge, right? You get little bits and pieces of things over the course of time. It's how you grow, right? But don't do something, don't, try to, have, basically like other books, and, you trying to match up all kinds of different historical points, but you ain't get the milk yet, right? You got to get the simple, and, the Lord has a lot of simplicity, within him. Get the simple things first, and then slowly start to work your way up, And it says, neither search the things that are above thy strength, okay? Because that'll bug you out. You trying to, there's people that go into all these, like I said, different books. You got the Chronicles of Abraham, the fourth volume, and and so on and so forth. Don't do things like that, okay? But the things that pertain to the scriptures, just continue to search diligently, labor within the Lord, in his knowledge, his wisdom and understanding, okay? And it says, but what is commanded thee, think thereupon with reverence, for it is not needful for thee to see with thine eyes the things that are in secret. Okay, it says, be not curious in unnecessary matters, right? You, like I said, you're trying to get all the historical points. This is something even, myself, early on in the truth that I, suffer from, just reading different books, because, Jake had a point of mastery and, in all things that I wanted to, achieve, but not understanding at that time, the Lord was just going to give you portions. You can only go based off whatever the Lord give you, right? You can't go above the measure, in which the Lord give you. Now, if he decides to reveal to you more and more and more throughout the course of time, right, within the scriptures, then that's a blessing, but you're not going to get it all at one time is what I'm saying. Like you can study, till you're blue in the face, but if the Lord doesn't, give you the increasing, and understanding and memory, then, you're just studying, That's why the scriptures say much studying is weariness of the flesh. And this is going into overdoing it. Obviously, we study, right? Obviously, we go into the scriptures, we break things down, but don't overdo it, And it says, be not curious in unnecessary matters, for things are shewed unto thee. And then it says Salakia. It says, for more things are shewed unto thee than men understand. So you actually know a lot more than what? A lot of other people. You know what I'm saying? Okay, a lot of people desired to know the secrets, the parables, the mysteries, the allegories, right? The similitudes, and the list goes on and on and on, that okay? A lot of people, all right? Our forefathers, always ask many questions concerning the end times and those things, certain things that just wasn't revealed at that time, we know. And like I said, that's a blessing from Yahweh Shema Shah, man. It really is. All right. And I'm going to read one more. It says, for many are deceived by their own vain opinion, right? And it says, and evil suspicion have overthrown their judgment. All right. So you can bug out, fall out of the truth, trying to get, everything down perfectly packed, and, you're not going to know everything. You know what I'm saying? So, but, the point is to try to increase in knowledge over the course of time. Okay. But I'm going to read that again. It says, for many are deceived by their own vain opinion, right? And it says, and an evil suspicion have overthrown their judgment. Yeah. So don't allow, Satan to have other avenues, right? That could bug you out, because the scriptures tell you that, the heart, is pretty much, the most wicked thing of all, man. The mind is could be, the devil's, playground, so to speak. Demons, get on people, man. We all, suffer from different spiritual attacks. Okay. This happens while in the truth. All right. Now let's go and get that, I think I had earlier, Proverbs 4. This is Proverbs, 4 and verse 18. It says, but the path of the just is as a shining light, right? And it says that shineth more and more until the perfect day, right? So, what does it say? It says it says the path of the just is a shining light, man. Illuminating the ways of the Lord, right? Giving out knowledge, wisdom, understanding. And it says it shines more and more, man, right? You're increased in understanding of the scriptures and wisdom within the scriptures more and more, man. And it says until the perfect day, until the day in which the Lord, and this is speaking on the elect of the nation of Israel, it makes thee perfect, man. Okay? Until the day you get beamed up, right? You put on a chariot, right? And the Lord changes you, and fashions you, to be like him, okay? All right, but the point is just increases, right? A slight increases more and more, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get another precept real quick. I want to for this one to be long, okay? I think it's verse 18. Where is it? Salakia, bear with me. Let's go to. Not too far. This is Psalms 119 and verse 98. It says, "Thou through thy commandments hast made me wiser than mine enemies." It says, "For they are ever with me." It says, verse 99. It says, "I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation." Okay, I'm gonna go one more, and it says, verse 100, and it says, "I understand more than the ancients." Okay, because I have kept thy precepts. Okay, so we have an understanding of what we understand. What more than the ancients, man? Okay, we like I said, there was men that desired to seek the things in which we know, which wasn't revealed at the time, but it was, given unto us, being a great blessing. Okay, the scriptures basically have made what I wanted to say, that simple men, into wise men. But the point is, to increase, in the things in which we have our former form, the baby form, right? And then we have the full grown, whatever adult version of us spiritually. Okay, we're speaking on spiritual matters, on spiritual growth, right? Let's get this here. Let's get. This is Daniel 12 and verse 4. It says, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book." Right? Okay, so the understanding eventually, have been sealed. Okay? And it says, what it's going to say though, it says, "Even to the end," it's like even to the time of the end, it says, "Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." Right? The Israelites are going to wake up, right, to the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. The Lord's going to release, right, the spiritual understanding of the scriptures. And man, knowledge is going to be increased at a rapid rate, at an alarming rate, man. Okay, you see brothers, coming in, and they getting, basically, they're getting it in, man. Okay, you see brothers spiritually grow, extremely fast within this truth, man. And that's just the spirit, the Lord, supping with, whatever brother, man. Okay. But, this goes back into what the title of today's lesson is. There's always a lesson to be learned. You can always increase on knowledge. You can always increase on understanding. Obviously, it is something that you will have to pray for, right? Okay. And if the Lord wills it, then you will get, whatever portion. Okay. And we, at some time, we all could remember we basically came to the point where we probably feel like, what it has a saying in the world, you feel like you hit the glass ceiling, so to speak, you know. And at that time, you had to pray to be increased, man. At that time, you had to pray that the Lord reveals to you um, more than what you knew at the time, right? To increase your spirit, you know. All right, let's get this here. We'll close out. All right, this is a warning against apostasy. Hebrews 5 verse 11. It says, of whom we have many things to say and hard to be uttered. It says, seeing ye are dull of hearing. It says, for when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again. Right? So at some point you're learning as much as you possibly can in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. But when you cross over, into the body, getting with the elders and apostles, right? There, more than likely there's things that you learn that may have been, slightly off and or, you know, basically, slight corrections, so to speak, right? There's a more perfect way of teaching that brothers could show you, okay? Because it says, for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again. So the time, at some point in time, if that's your lot, you may be appointed to be a teacher, but you come into doing what? You got to be taught, you got to be taught again, right? I believe, I forgot the the prophet's name, but there was basically two prophets came to another and told him, man, he was already teaching, but they said, hey, look, let us show you. Let me see if I could find it real quick. It talked about a more perfect way, right, of teaching. Let me see way. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I can't find it, but it does speak on. Let me see. Might be able to type it up in Google or something. So. Is it 18 and 24? Bear with me. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, this is it. This says, Apollo speaks boldly in Ephesus. This is Acts 18 and verse 24. And it says, and a certain Jew named Apollos, born at Alexandria, it says, an eloquent man and mighty in the scriptures, came to Ephesus, So it's telling you that the brother, basically, knew about the scriptures, right? He knew about the ways of Yahweh Shem Shah. It says, this man was instructed in the way of the Lord, instructed in the way. And it says, and being fervent in the spirit, it says he spake and taught diligently the things of the Lord, knowing only the baptism of John. And it says, and he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them and expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly, right? So they taught him a better way, right? He was already teaching, but they taught him, to be a better teacher, right? Giving them corrections on, hey, look, do this, do that, right? Okay. I'm gonna read the same verse in the GNT, and it says, he began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took him home with them and explained to him more correctly the way of God, right? And that's what I meant by, us crossing over. You may know a little something, or you may know, a lot more than other brothers, but that's, things that's going to have to be, tidied up, cleaned up, corrected, okay, so on and so forth, all right? But let's go back to that Hebrews 5 and 12, and it says, for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. So you got need of learning the things that you need to learn first, the basis, of the scriptures. But expound yourself, man. Grow more and more. Okay. When you first come in, you obviously can't eat. You can't eat the strong meat. The deep, dark mysteries and the parables, right? You being a baby. Okay. But reading the next verse, it says, for everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he's a babe, right? He's just a baby, man. Okay. It says, but strong meat belongeth to them that are full of age. And it says, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil, right? And I'm going to read the same verse in the GNT. It says, solid food, on the other hand, and we know what this is talking about, understanding the word, like I said, the doctrine, parables, right? Okay, these are likened unto the deep, dark mysteries are likened unto strong meat, man. So, what they would say maybe like harder to break down, so to speak, okay? And it says solid food, on the other hand, is for adults who through practice are able to distinguish between good and evil, all right? And you got to have your senses exercise, man, right? Because you need experience, right? Right, you got to be tried, in the things that pertain to the milk, okay? And through being tried, over and over again, studying, going over the breakdowns and things of that nature, over the course of time, the milk, sticks to you, okay? Because that's how you learn. You learn pretty much through, repetition, all right? Doing something over and over and over again, to basically it becomes like second nature, But that's pretty much, all I had, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shah. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, all right? And it says, the title of today's lesson is, there's always a lesson to be learned, man. You can always increase pretty much on knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, right? Just, pray on it. Not saying to overdo it, not saying to be over righteous, not saying, but you got to constantly want more and more within this truth, right? You don't want to be stagnant, right? You don't want to be, stuck, be in one place all the time, one topic, all the time, don't be afraid, to read more and gain more, man, right? Because the Lord has given out, an abundance, right, in the spirit of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, all right? But like I said, that's all I have through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shah. Lord willing, this lesson was edifying first and foremost to the hopeful elect. But prior to getting out of here, we want to give all infinite honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem, Ar Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, blessings, and salutations be to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, all right? Kwam Yasha Allah, Abba Shalom.